Alright, if you've been following me for a while, you would know that till now I've never really told you what to think. I tell you to question what you think, and I tell you what I think, but I don't tell you what you should think. Because I give you some credit of some level of intellectual ability, because you've stuck around till now with videos that come far and few in between, sometimes with diminishing camera qualities and editing, and no music generally as well. So there's little to offer for the senses. Um, when you're here, if you're here, you're here for some sort of uh, intellectual dissection. So yes, I've never really told you what to believe because I already know that you're smart enough to figure out a lot of things on your own. I'm only here to give you my perspective, and that is the one reason why I generally don't talk about the things that I've read, or from where have I formulated my ideologies, or from where do I derive what I base my personality on. Whether I'm a fan of Stoicism or I'm a fan of something else, or if Peterson appeals to me or doesn't, or if I'm a MGTOW or not. You've had these profound questions, these inquisitive questions, which is very good to question. But I have never represented anyone, and I have never taken a stance on anything like that. Generally, never really spoken much about it. That's because no matter what I would believe in would be an ideology that I've borrowed from somewhere else, and there is nothing of novelty to offer in that. What I believe in has to be from my own experiences, because my own experiences are the only reliable source that I have to what I behave like and how I should behave like. What some philosopher believes, or what some philosophical idea is, that worked for them, and they wrote about it because it worked for them. It might work for me, it might not work for me. It might work for you, it might not work for you. There are so many million different variables, from the way you look to kind of money that you earn, to what are your dreams and passions, to what you can afford to sacrifice, to what you can afford to spend, to what you can afford to work on, to what is your core idea that you cannot change under any circumstances, your religious inclinations, your political inclinations, your philosophical inclinations. So how can what advice works for me work for you? Mine is a unique perspective that works specifically for me, while someone else's works specifically for them. So what I would say is, be wary of people who derive ideas from others and sell you derived ideas. So be a little wary of be a little practical is what I mean, of what you possibly can follow and cannot follow. Just because someone is saying something that you should follow doesn't mean that you should. Be a little practical, be a little see how well it aligns to what you believe in, and then follow. I guess that's what I would say. I never followed. I have always been the outsider. I've been the outcast because I've chosen that. That is of my choice. Initially perhaps imposed, but later on I came to love it, and later on I realized why it was good, why it works for me. But to reach this point, to become a child again, to understand what are my core ideas, to understand what was I born with, to understand what my inherent sense of expression is, to understand what my inherent abilities are, my inherent inclinations. What am I at essence? I had to deconstruct everything that I generally believed in and go down a rabbit hole of many conflicting ideas. And I had to really break them apart to understand what was aligned with my thinking, right? And the way I did that was Contrary to what most people would tell you, people who tell you to love yourself, no, no, no. You must hate yourself, at least for some time, because when you love yourself, you've already imposed a certain finality to a state of perfection in your life. You're like, well, there's nothing to work on. Everything is seamless. Everything is fine. No. If hate is too strong a word, you must be critical of yourself. Because self-criticism lets you assess yourself. It makes you observe yourself from here, right? It makes you observe yourself from a third person's perspective. Why do you behave like this? Why does that thing irritate you? Why does that make you insecure? Why does that bother you? What is the reason behind that quirk that you have? So you must have a certain degree of self-criticism to even start the journey to understand the self. And in my case, how it worked is I never embodied, like, where did self-criticism, or where did it start for me to understand my own value or identity, to understand why I'm like this? I think it was because of love. I think what love did was made me feel like it made me feel a little unworthy, I guess, at times, because I didn't know what was there to love in me. I didn't understand, as I said, because I never filled the void. I never filled the place in social structures where a certain sense of masculinity is projected. You must go to the gym, you must lift weights, things like that. And I thought that was the only way to get love, that at least to be desired you must have all of that. Yet throughout my life I have had extremely good relationships with women. Women have generally adored me, and contrary to what a lot of people might believe, even when I made the first video, it was women who supported that idea initially. Men were very critical. I had men tell me, it's 30 minutes long, it's not going to work. I had men tell me, you look like a druggie or something like that. So it was generally men who were opposing the idea, which I found particularly strange. And not just in the video, throughout my life I've had men who've been a constant source of competition. And again, as I said, I don't fit in the mold of the masculinity that is projected in the world today. I don't fit that mold. So I did not understand, since I don't fit the mold, why is there competition? I don't understand. I didn't understand as a kid. I didn't understand what game was it that people were playing, this sort of game, this hierarchical game. I didn't understand this hierarchical game. I didn't understand why I should play it. Why can I not just be the observer? Or not partake in anything at all? So what was the competition for? And still, throughout my life, it was men who had some sort of an ego issue with me. Women have adored me. They always have, and they always will, I think. I hope so. And to understand what it was about me that women loved, even when I didn't embody this sort of idea of what seemed to be socially acceptable, I had to deconstruct my identity to understand, because every time I asked someone, why do you love me? Why do you like me? What is there to like about me? I didn't understand. So no one gave me a clear answer. I want specific answers. If I'm asking you why, you just got to tell me. Not because I'm being rude about it, but I'm genuinely curious. Why? Why? It just makes sense to me. Why? So since no one gave me a satisfactory answer, I had to assess myself to understand what it was that was desired about me. And in that assessment, I went down a rabbit hole that led me to some sort of to understand a certain degree of myself at the core. To become a child, I had to understand myself at the core. I had to understand what it was that made me lovable, even though I couldn't understand, right? So I didn't see it in any way. That's the only way I saw it. I mean, that it was a question. So that question led me down to understand what is it precisely. So over the years, I sat down with myself to understand what it was that people saw. And I guess what has happened is the fact that I'm fascinated by everything is what makes people fascinated in me. And such a strange sense of irony. But the fact that I have so many hobbies, the fact that I'm fascinated by everything that I see, is what makes people fascinated towards me. Almost like seeks like. So people like being fascinated. Everyone likes decoding mysteries. I understood this early on when women said that there's some sort of mystique around you that we like. And that is why I never had to really work. I never had to play the game, I never had to download Tinder. I didn't have to do all these silly things that you people do. I didn't have to go to the gym. I had profoundly beautiful relationships with women, and I was loved. I am loved by women. Loved. And in my trying to understand the mind of a woman and what it was that they precisely love, I deduced that people like being intrigued. People like being reminded that they are children as well. People like being reminded that they're curious by nature, that there is something inherently curious about them. And there's something inherently curious that they find about things. So they need to be reminded that. For that, you need to be some sort of a mystery. You need to be some sort of a an object of curiosity for them. So that way you don't have to go out and play any game, because people like decoding mysteries. They want to come and try to decode you. Anyway, so I had to understand why it was that people found fascinating about me, and I think I figured it out when I really sat myself for that long. I understood what people find fascinating is that how can something so animate, something so childlike, something so theatric in a little way. It is a little theatric. I see myself as an actor. I see this identity as an actor many times. Animesh Kapoor is an actor that I play. And I've played many actors throughout Animesh Kapoor's life. The young rebel and this and that and who knows how many other things. But this identity, this actor, Animesh Kapoor, has an intrinsic quality of curiosity about him, which is very reflective from his actions. But the voice has a certain degree of maturity, a certain degree of finesse and understanding and masculinity, because it's deep and a little seductive from what I've been told. So it's difficult for people to understand which side is true. Are the actions true? Is the voice the real thing? And this is obviously not something I've consciously done ever in my life. But I've understood myself to that degree of the self, to understand what it is what it's like to look at my identity from another perspective, to not just see from here, to also see from here in some aspect. So now that I understand myself to that degree, to that sophistication, I understand that there are some inherent core ideas that I have of life. One of them is compassion. I think animals should be loved and cherished, beautiful, clean beings without malice, without jealousy or envy, without pride. So compassion, I think, is a core idea that is here over here. So any philosophy that doesn't follow somewhat of a compassionate narrative is something I will never follow, right? Because at the core, that's what I am, compassionate. Another thing, an inherent quality or an inherent sense of expression in me is creativity. I've lived my entire life creating things, creating art, creating this, creating. So I'm a creator. I like creating things. I'm the magician archetype. I like the act of creation, right? That's why I'm good at creative things, because I'm a creator. And that reflects through every aspect of my being, even from the way that I speak. It is structured and precise in that very specific way. The words that I choose, to where I intonate, where I take the voice over here and when I bring the voice down. It is a very structured sort of a way, almost poetic. A very creative sense of expression as well. So it's reflective in everything that I do, creativity. So I understood that if I don't channel that creativity, if I'm not creative, if I forget that child, that inherent thing that I was good at. Certain kids are inherently good at sports. They're just born to do that. Some people are just born to excel at sports. Some people are just born creative. Some people are just born intellectual. So there is an inherent quality that you're born with. Everyone has it. Ask your parents, what was it that you were good at inherently as a child? That is your calling. That is going to give you more peace than most meditations will give you. That is going to give you more peace than going down a philosophical wormhole of whether this is true or whether that is true. Those things would become a little irrelevant once you find that child and its inherent goodness. What were the inherent qualities that made the child unique? Everyone is unique inherently. We just become a little boring as we grow old. We are all unique in some way or the other. Some a little more, some a little less, but we all have a unique sense of expression. And that uniqueness is reflected as a child. And as we grow old, we forget that uniqueness. So that's what I would suggest to you. Deconstruct your identity the way I'm talking about. Don't follow my example, obviously. But deconstruct your identity to understand exactly what makes you afraid. What makes you loved? What makes you afraid? What makes you angry? What makes you sad? Understand where they stem from. What happened? What went wrong? Of course, for this you need to go a little inwards, and for this meditation and things like that might help. Even therapy might help. Therapists are also very good actors because they have to keep their identity sitting over there as just a flashback typewriter, and they have to listen to the person without a form of judgment and just note down everything that they note down. Observations. They're observers. Psychologists, psychiatrists are observers. Psychiatry, psychology is the science of observing things, observing patterns, patterns and deconstructing them, and deconstructing identities and going to the root cause of what might give you pain and understand what you can do about it. And the only time you were without pain and the only time you have ever been blissful in your life was when you were a child. So it just makes sense to me that sort of reverting back might make a lot of people happy, because it has made me tremendously happy to fulfill that sense of expression that I had as a child. Go deep, understand, analyze, deconstruct every single aspect of yourself. Understand how people see you. Last thing, I think this is a very good idea. People often mistake this when I explain it to them. They think it's narcissism. But narcissism is self-absorption. You're absorbed in yourself and you're absorbed into something. Right? When you're absorbed into something, you're inside something. You can't see. You're absorbed within yourself. You're absorbed with this thing, whatever this is, this flesh bag. You're absorbed in this flesh bag. But self-reflection is not being absorbed with the self, but it's to see the self in everything. Everything is divine, or everything is like you in some aspect. Self-reflection is that, to see yourself in everything. That's the reason I give you advices, or I give you my take on things from what I have experienced. Because what I have experienced in some way or the other, because we're all human beings, what I have experienced somewhere down the line, you have experienced as well. So inherently what is me is inherently what is you. There is a little bit of myself in you. There is a little bit of myself in everyone, and a little bit of yourself in everyone. That is a good enough reason for me to love animals and to love people. I love people. I love animals. I love living things. Because I see a little bit of me in everything. The tiger is a solitary animal that goes out every now and then, soaks up the sun, and it's a fierce animal. It's got a roar that paralyzes its prey. So I see a little bit of myself in that as well, that I've got a voice that I really, if I wanted to, I could decimate someone, destroy someone with just speaking. That roast video and things like that you talk about is because the only reason they work is because I've got a voice that can do that. If I want to, I choose not to. I choose not to. I have the capability, the capacity to do it. I choose not to. Very important choice, So yes, it's extremely important to deconstruct yourself to the point where you see yourself in everything. The movies that you watch, you relate to characters, right? I relate to characters that I see in movies because I see a little bit of myself in that character, or the entire character is myself. That is a good enough reason for me to say compassion should be a rule of life, because this inherent ability to feel pain, this inherent ability to be hurt, this inherent ability to be bothered is not limited to you, it's not limited to us, it's seen in most animals, it's in 1 million animals at the very least. It's a good enough reason for me to be compassionate towards them. Because I see a little bit of myself in them, and I see a little bit of myself in you all, and you all see a little bit of yourself in me. And that self-reflection, that's true self-reflection, to see everyone as a mirror that reflects you, and you reflect the other. And was it Rumi or someone who said it? I don't know, someone said it. I remember this is an old Sab aina hai, or something on those lines. Everyone is a mirror of yourself, and you're a mirror of everyone else. That's why my life experiences seem so similar to yours, because inherently we are all similar. We all have similar life experiences. We all felt pain once, we all felt loved once, we all felt hate once, we all felt unworthy, and we all felt proud, we all felt broken, and we all felt curious. And curiosity, out of all those things, I think is one of the most important ones, because that'll take you back to that state in your childhood where you would understand your core ideas. And basis those core ideas base everything else in your life. The political ideology should be based on what the child might have chosen. The child is right. And the questions of the child are profoundly philosophical. We just try to numb it. We just try to push it down their throat and say, no, what you believe in is nonsense. Here, this is what you should believe in. No, go back. Ask a lot of questions. And laugh at the absurdity of every single thing on your way. Because if you laugh at the absurdity of everything on your way, you will not drown in the waters. You would laugh. And laughing is infinitely better than gasping for air. So I'll leave you on that note for today. I hope it wasn't too vague and too random. Every single idea that I've spoken about in this, you could perhaps tell me individually which one would you like further elaboration on. Because that's how conversations happen with me. It starts at some note, and I explore a lot of possibilities on my way till the end. I hope you're all having a good day. and I'll see you again soon.